The morning sun cast long shadows across the crystal spires of the Galactic Academy of Xenobiology. On the peaceful world of Serenitas Prime, violence was as foreign as winter snow. The Academy stood as a monument to gentle learning, where the galaxy's most peaceful species came to study life in all its forms. Dr. Vexhai adjusted her crystalline form as she prepared for the new semester. Her species, the Zilithians, were living gems that fed on sunlight and minerals. They had never known war, never felt the need to harm another being. Like most faculty at the Academy, she found violence to be not just wrong but impossible to understand. The classroom filled slowly with students from across the galaxy. There was Piptel, a small furry creature whose people lived in harmony with the singing trees of their homeworld. Next to him sat Gleaming Moss on Still Water, whose aquatic species had evolved past the need for individual names longer than poetry. In the back corner, 3 healer touched from the meditation worlds whispered prayers for a peaceful day. Every student belonged to a species that had achieved space travel through cooperation, never conflict. They were herbivores, filter feeders, or energy absorbers. Their worlds knew only peace, every student except one. Marcus Chen sat in the middle of the classroom trying to look smaller than his 6-foot frame allowed. His brown hair was cut short in a military style that made the other students nervous. His dark eyes moved constantly, taking in every detail of the room in a way that reminded them of something they preferred not to think about. Marcus was human. His homeworld, Earth, carried the dreaded classification of Class Luthine Deathworld. It was a planet where creatures killed other creatures to survive, where violence was not an aberration but a daily reality, where his own species had climbed to the top of the food chain by being better at killing than anything else that had ever lived. The other students had seen the videos in their preparatory classes. Earth was a world of monsters. Great white sharks with rows of teeth designed for tearing flesh. Polar bears that could crush a skull with one swipe. Tigers that stalked their prey for miles before striking. And somehow, impossibly, humans had not just survived on this nightmare world but had become its apex predators. Dr. Vexhai's voice chimed like crystal bells as she began the class. Welcome to Advanced Xenobiology. This semester, we will be studying something that challenges our very understanding of life itself. The students leaned forward with interest. The Academy was known for its gentle approach to learning. They expected to study beautiful coral gardens or the mathematical patterns of spiral galaxies. We will be studying predatory species, Dr. Vexhai announced. The room fell silent. Several students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The 3 healer touched began whispering prayers more urgently. I know this topic disturbs many of you, the professor continued, but predatory behavior exists throughout the galaxy. If we are to understand life, we must understand all forms of life, even those that seem alien to our peaceful nature. Piptel raised a small paw. Professor, why must we study such things? Surely there are more pleasant subjects. Because knowledge without understanding is incomplete, Dr. Vexhai replied. We have classified hundreds of predatory species, but we know almost nothing about how they think, how they live, or what drives them. This ignorance has led to tragic misunderstandings. She gestured to a holographic display that showed various creatures from across the galaxy. Each one was designed for killing. Sharp teeth, powerful claws, venomous stingers, crushing jaws. The students recoiled as if the images might leap from the display and attack them. These beings are not evil, Dr. Vexhai said. They are simply different from us. They evolved on worlds where survival required different strategies. To understand them, we must put aside our peaceful nature and try to think as they think. Gleaming Moss on Still Water rippled with distress. How can we think like killers? It goes against everything we are. That is why this class will be our greatest challenge, the professor replied. We must expand our minds beyond our own experience. Throughout this exchange, Marcus had remained silent. While the other students showed visible distress at the topic, he seemed interested, even excited. When Dr. Vexhai displayed images of Earth's predators, Marcus smiled slightly as if seeing old friends. This did not go unnoticed by the other students. They had already been nervous about having a human in their class. Now seeing him react positively to images of creatures that gave them nightmares, their fear deepened. Mr. Chen, Dr. Vexhai said, perhaps you could share your perspective on predatory behavior? All eyes turned to Marcus. He felt the weight of their stares, the mixture of fear and fascination in their gazes. He had dealt with this reaction his entire time at the academy. To these peaceful beings, he was barely more civilized than the creatures they were studying. Predators aren't monsters, Marcus said quietly. They're just trying to survive like everyone else. They have families, they care for their young, they play and learn and feel. They just happen to eat meat instead of plants or sunlight. The explanation, which seemed reasonable to Marcus, only made the other students more uncomfortable. The idea that killers could have families and emotions was somehow more disturbing than thinking of them as mindless monsters. Piptel whispered to his neighbor, loud enough for Marcus to hear. How can he speak of them so calmly? What kind of world creates people who think that way? Marcus pretended not to hear, but the words stung. He had worked hard to get into the academy. His grades were excellent, his research papers groundbreaking. But no matter what he achieved, the other students would always see him as a savage from a savage world. Dr. Vexhai noticed the tension in the room. We must remember that diversity of thought is what makes this academy great. Each species brings a unique perspective to our studies. Mr. Chen's background may help us understand predatory behavior in ways that we peaceful species cannot. She touched a control on her desk, and the holographic display changed to show a schedule. This semester we will be conducting a special study. The Academy has obtained a living specimen of one of the galaxy's most dangerous predators. We will observe its behavior, study its habits, and try to understand its nature. The room erupted in worried voices. A living predator? Here at the Academy? Is that safe? Dr. Vexhai raised her hand for silence. The specimen is completely contained in our most secure facility. There is no danger to anyone. This is a unique opportunity to study predatory behavior firsthand, rather than through recordings and reports. As the class ended and students filed out, Marcus could hear their whispered conversations. They were scared, not just of the predator they would be studying, but of having to study it alongside someone from a death world. To them, Marcus was almost as dangerous as whatever creature waited in the containment facility. Marcus gathered his materials slowly, letting the others leave first. It was easier that way, avoiding the uncomfortable silences and fearful glances. As he reached the door, Dr. Vexhai called his name. Mr. Chen, I hope you understand why your presence in this class is important. Your species' unique perspective may be exactly what we need to truly understand predatory behavior. Marcus nodded, though he wondered if understanding was really what his classmates wanted. Sometimes, he thought, people preferred their fears to remain simple and uncomplicated. As he walked across the peaceful campus, Marcus couldn't help but wonder what kind of predator they would be studying, and despite everything, he found himself looking forward to meeting it. 3 days later, the class gathered in Laboratory Complex 7, the Academy's most secure research facility. The building was different from the rest of the campus, where other structures were made of crystal and flowing curves. This one was built from solid metal and sharp angles. It was designed for containment, not beauty. Dr. Vexhai led them through multiple security checkpoints. Each door required different scans and clearances. The students walked in nervous silence, their earlier excitement about advanced studies replaced by growing dread. The creature we will be studying, Dr. Vexhai explained as they walked, is a Thaknari hunter. They are considered one of the most dangerous predators in known space. Piptel's ears flattened against his head. How dangerous? A single hunter has been known to kill entire research teams. They possess incredible speed, strength, and intelligence. Most disturbing of all, they can phase through solid matter for brief periods, making them nearly impossible to contain. The group stopped outside a massive door marked with warning symbols in dozens of languages. Through a small window, they could see into the containment chamber beyond. The containment field uses quantum lock technology, Dr. Vexhai continued. The same type used to hold antimatter. It should be sufficient to contain our subject. She pressed her hand to a scanner and the door slid open with a heavy mechanical sound. The student stepped into an observation area, separated from the containment chamber by both physical barriers and shimmering energy fields. The chamber beyond was large, about the size of a basketball court, with white walls and a single drain in the center. It looked more like a prison cell than a research facility. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a shadow moved in the far corner, and the students got their first look at the Thaknari hunter. It was 8 feet tall and built like a nightmare. Its body was covered in dark scales that seemed to absorb light. Forearms ended in hands tipped with obsidian claws that looked sharp enough to cut through steel. Its head was elongated, with rows of teeth visible even when its mouth was closed. But most disturbing were its eyes. They were intelligent, calculating, and filled with a cold hunger that made every peaceful species in the room want to run. The moment the students saw it, half the class backed away from the observation window. 2 students actually fled the room entirely. The 3 healer-touched began chanting prayers for protection. The hunter noticed the visitors and moved closer to the barrier. Its movements were fluid and silent, like water flowing uphill. When it reached the energy field, it placed one clawed hand against it and stared directly at the students. Gleaming moss on still water made a sound like water boiling. "It's looking at us like we're food. Why is it so big?" Piptel whispered. "What could it possibly need to hunt that requires such size and strength?" Dr. Vexhai activated a recording device. "These are exactly the questions we need to answer. The Thaknari are apex predators on their homeworld, but that world was destroyed in a stellar catastrophe 3 centuries ago. The surviving hunters have been scattered across the galaxy, and many have turned to hunting sentient species." The hunter continued to stare at them, its head tilting slightly as it studied each student in turn. When its gaze reached Marcus, something strange happened. The creature stopped moving entirely, focusing all its attention on the human. Marcus stepped closer to the barrier, ignoring the gasps from his classmates. While they saw a monster, he saw something else. The way the hunter moved reminded him of videos he had seen of Earth's big cats. The intelligence in its eyes was familiar, like looking at a wolf or a shark. This was a predator, yes, but it was also a living being with its own thoughts and motivations. "Fascinating," Marcus said, pulling out his tablet to take notes. "Look at the muscle structure in its legs. Built for explosive movement, probably for ambush hunting. And those claws aren't just weapons, they're tools. See how it's testing the barrier? It's learning." The other students stared at Marcus in horror. While they saw a creature that filled them with primal terror, he was analyzing it like a biology specimen. "How can you be so calm?" Piptel asked. "It's a killer." "So are tigers," Marcus replied, not taking his eyes off the hunter. "So are sharks. So are humans, for that matter. That doesn't make them evil." The hunter seemed to understand that Marcus was different from the others. It moved along the barrier, keeping pace with the human as Marcus walked around the containment chamber. The other students pressed themselves against the far wall, but Marcus stayed close to the energy field, studying the creature's every movement. "Mr. Chen," Dr. Vexhai said, "please maintain a safe distance from the containment field." "I am at a safe distance," Marcus replied. "The barrier is designed to hold antimatter. I think it can handle one predator no matter how strong." As if in response to his words, the hunter suddenly struck the barrier with all 4 fists simultaneously. The energy field flared bright blue and alarms began sounding throughout the facility. The impact sent vibrations through the floor strong enough to knock Piptel off his feet. But the barrier held. The hunter stepped back, tilting its head as if impressed by the strength of its prison. Then it did something that chilled every student except Marcus to their core. It smiled. The expression was almost human, despite the rows of teeth. It was the smile of someone who had just learned something interesting, someone who was already planning their next move. "Emergency protocols are engaging," an automated voice announced. "All personnel must evacuate the laboratory immediately." As the students hurried toward the exit, Marcus lingered, still watching the hunter. The creature watched him back, and for a moment the 2 predators simply studied each other through the barrier. "Mr. Chen," Dr. Vexhai called urgently. "We must leave now." Marcus finally turned away, but not before he saw the hunter place its hand against the barrier again, this time in what almost looked like a gesture of farewell. Outside the laboratory, the students clustered together, voices raised in fear and confusion. "Did you see how it looked at us?" "It was planning how to kill us." "Why did it smile?" "Predators shouldn't be able to smile." Through it all, Marcus remained quiet, reviewing the notes he had taken. While his classmates had seen only a monster, he had observed hunting adaptations that rivaled anything on Earth. The hunter was beautiful in its efficiency, perfectly designed for its role as an apex predator. "Mr. Chen," Dr. Vexhai approached him as the other students dispersed. "Your observations were quite detailed for such a brief encounter." "It's an impressive specimen," Marcus replied. "I've never seen anything quite like it." even in Earth's fossil record. The combination of strength, speed, and intelligence is remarkable. Dr. Vexhi's crystalline form flickered with confusion. You sound almost appreciative. Marcus looked back toward the laboratory building. I respect predators, Professor. They have to be perfect at what they do or they don't survive. That creature in there is the result of millions of years of evolution, shaped by countless challenges and competitions. How can I not appreciate that kind of natural engineering? As he walked away, Marcus was already planning his next visit to the laboratory. He had dozens of questions about the hunter's behavior, its intelligence, its hunting strategies. For the first time since arriving at the academy, he felt like he was studying something that truly interested him. Behind him, Dr. Vexhi watched him go, wondering if bringing a human into this class had been wise. Marcus's reaction to the hunter was unlike anything she had expected. He showed no fear, only fascination. Perhaps that was exactly what they needed to understand predatory behavior. Or perhaps it was the most dangerous thing imaginable. Over the following weeks, a routine developed in Dr. Vexhi's class. 3 times a week, the students would gather in the observation area to study the Thaknari hunter. Most of them preferred to watch from as far away as possible, taking notes on the creature's basic movements and eating habits. Marcus, however, had claimed a spot directly against the observation window. He brought different equipment each day, cameras with telephoto lenses, audio recording devices, even a tablet loaded with comparison videos from Earth's predators. While his classmates observed the hunter like scientists studying a dangerous specimen, Marcus watched it like a naturalist studying a magnificent wild animal. The hunter had noticed this difference. During the first week, it had paced around its enclosure randomly, testing different sections of the barrier and showing signs of stress from captivity. But gradually it began timing its activities to coincide with Marcus's visits. When the human arrived, the hunter would move to the area closest to the observation window and begin what could only be described as demonstrations. Look at this, Marcus said during one session, his excitement barely contained. He pointed to where the hunter was performing what appeared to be practice strikes against an imaginary opponent. It's showing us its hunting techniques. See how it feints with the upper arms while the lower arms prepare for the real attack? That's sophisticated tactical thinking. Piptel shuddered. It's practicing how to kill us. No, Marcus corrected, still filming. It's practicing how to hunt. There's a difference. This is instinctive behavior, like a cat playing with a toy mouse. It needs to keep its skills sharp even in captivity. Dr. Vexhi found herself spending more time watching Marcus than the hunter. The human's insights were unlike anything in the academic literature on predatory species. Where previous researchers had focused on threat assessment and containment procedures, Marcus was documenting behavior patterns that revealed complex intelligence. Mr. Chen, she said after one particularly productive session, your observation methods are quite different from standard protocol. Where did you learn to study predators this way? Marcus looked embarrassed. I grew up near Yellowstone National Park. My parents were wildlife biologists. I spent summers watching wolves, bears, mountain lions. You learn to see past the teeth and claws to the intelligence underneath. This revelation sent ripples of whispered conversation through the class. The idea that humans not only lived alongside apex predators but actually studied them voluntarily was beyond their comprehension. As the days passed, Marcus began bringing items to the laboratory. First, it was simple things. Different colored lights to see how the hunter's eyes responded. Various sounds to test its hearing range. The hunter showed interest in these experiments, moving closer to investigate each new stimulus. Then Marcus started bringing puzzles. What are you doing? Dr. Vexhi asked as Marcus positioned a complex mechanical puzzle near the barrier. Testing problem-solving ability, Marcus replied. If the hunter is as intelligent as I think it is, it should be curious about how this works. The hunter approached the puzzle cautiously, studying it from multiple angles. Then, to everyone's amazement, it began using its claws to manipulate the puzzle pieces through the barrier. The energy field allowed small objects to pass through slowly, and the hunter worked with surprising delicacy to solve the mechanical challenge. Impossible, gleaming moss on still water bubbled. Predators don't solve puzzles. They just kill and eat. But the hunter continued working, its 4 hands moving in coordinated patterns to rotate and align the puzzle pieces. When it finished, it stepped back and made a sound that could only be described as satisfied. Marcus was taking rapid notes. Tool use, problem solving, delayed gratification, tactical thinking. This isn't just a killing machine. This is a sapient being. The other students were deeply disturbed by this conclusion. The idea that predators could be intelligent was frightening enough, but the suggestion that they might be people was too much to accept. Mr. Chen, Dr. Vexhai said carefully, you seem to be developing a rather personal connection with the subject. This could compromise your scientific objectivity. Marcus looked up from his notes. With respect, Professor, I think my objectivity is the only thing that's not compromised here. Everyone else is too scared to see what's really happening. He gestured toward the hunter, which was now examining a new puzzle Marcus had provided. Look at its behavior patterns. It's not random violence. It's bored, frustrated, and probably depressed. Imagine being the smartest predator on your world, then suddenly finding yourself alone in a cage, surrounded by prey species that study you like a museum exhibit. As if it understood his words, the hunter looked up from its puzzle and stared directly at Marcus. For a long moment, the two beings looked at each other through the barrier. Then the hunter did something that made half the class flee the room. It nodded. The gesture was subtle but unmistakable. A slight dip of the head, the universal sign of acknowledgement between intelligent beings. Marcus nodded back. Did that thing just communicate with him? Piptel whispered from behind a chair. Dr. Vexhai felt her crystalline form vibrating with uncertainty. In all her years of studying alien species, she had never seen anything like this. The literature on Thaknari hunters described them as mindless killing machines, driven by instinct and hunger. But the creature in the containment chamber was clearly demonstrating intelligence, curiosity, and now apparent communication abilities. Mr. Chen, she said, I think you should explain what just happened. Marcus was still looking at the hunter, which had returned to its puzzle. Recognition, he said simply. It knows I'm different from the others. It knows I'm not afraid of it. But it's a predator, one of the healer-touched said. How can you not be afraid? Marcus finally turned away from the window. Because I understand predators. My species are predators too. Not as physically impressive as our friend here, but predators nonetheless. We recognize each other. The class fell silent. The implications of Marcus's words were staggering. If humans were predators, and if predators could be intelligent, then what did that say about the galaxy's understanding of life itself? Over the following days, Marcus continued his informal experiments. He brought recordings of Earth's predators, wolf howls, lion roars, whale songs. The hunter listened to each one with apparent interest, sometimes responding with its own vocalizations. When Marcus played recordings of human voices, the hunter became particularly attentive. It seemed to understand that these sounds came from Marcus's species, and it began trying to mimic some of the simpler sounds. It's learning to communicate, Marcus reported to Dr. Vexhai. Not just random noise, but actual attempts at vocal patterns. This is language acquisition behavior. Dr. Vexhai no longer knew what to think. Everything Marcus observed contradicted decades of research on predatory species. Either the human was projecting intelligence where none existed, or the galaxy's understanding of predators was fundamentally flawed. The answer came during a session when Marcus brought a mirror to the laboratory. He positioned it so the hunter could see its own reflection, then watched carefully for the creature's reaction. The hunter approached the mirror cautiously, studying its reflection from different angles. Then it did something that proved its intelligence beyond any doubt. It began grooming itself, using the mirror to see areas it couldn't normally reach. This was self-recognition, one of the key markers of sapient intelligence. The hunter knew it was looking at itself, not another creature. My God, Dr. Vexhai whispered. It's self-aware. Marcus nodded grimly. Which means we're not studying a specimen. We're holding a person prisoner. The weight of this realization settled over the observation room like a heavy blanket. If the hunter was truly intelligent, truly self-aware, then everything about their research was ethically questionable. But before anyone could process this fully, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. Emergency lights flashed red and the automated voice echoed through the corridors. Power grid failure in progress. All containment fields operating on backup power. Estimated time to total failure, 15 minutes. Through the observation window, they could see the hunter's containment field flickering. The emergency alarms continued to wail as Dr. Vexhai herded her students toward the exit. The hunter's containment field was flickering more frequently now, the blue energy barrier fading to a weak shimmer before struggling back to full strength. "Everyone out," Dr. Vexhai commanded. "Security protocols require immediate evacuation during containment failures." The students needed no encouragement. They rushed toward the door, some stumbling in their panic to escape before the barrier collapsed completely. Within moments, only Marcus and Dr. Vexhai remained in the observation area. "Mr. Chen, we must leave now," the professor insisted, her crystalline form pulsing with urgent light patterns. But Marcus stayed at the window, watching the hunter's reaction to the failing containment field. The creature had noticed the flickering barrier and was testing it carefully, pressing its claws against weak points in the energy matrix. It was methodical, intelligent, patient. "It's not trying to break out," Marcus observed. "It's studying the failure pattern. It could probably escape right now if it wanted to. That's exactly why we need to leave." Dr. Vexhai grabbed Marcus's arm, trying to pull him away from the window. Marcus resisted. "Look at its body language. It's not showing hunting behavior. No aggressive posturing, no territorial displays. It's just curious." As if to prove his point, the hunter looked up and made eye contact with Marcus through the failing barrier. Its expression was hard to read, but it didn't look angry or hungry. If anything, it looked resigned. The containment field gave one final flicker and died. For a moment, nothing happened. The hunter stood in its cell, no longer held by energy barriers, free to phase through the walls and escape into the academy grounds. The silence stretched between predator and human, broken only by the distant wail of alarms. Then the hunter took a step forward. Dr. Vexhai made a sound like breaking crystal and fled the room, but Marcus remained at the window. The hunter approached the observation barrier, which was designed to stop physical attacks but couldn't prevent phasing abilities. With casual ease, the creature stepped through the wall and into the observation area. Marcus found himself face to face with 8 feet of apex predator, separated by nothing but air and mutual understanding. The hunter's claws could tear him apart in seconds. Its teeth could crush his skull like an eggshell. Its forearms could overpower any resistance he might offer. Instead, it simply stood there, studying him with those intelligent eyes. "Hello," Marcus said quietly, using the same tone he might use with a nervous animal. The hunter tilted its head, listening to the sound. Then in a voice like grinding stone, it attempted to repeat the word, "Hello." The pronunciation was rough, filtered through an alien vocal system, but the intent was clear. The hunter was trying to communicate. Marcus felt his heart racing, but not from fear. This was the moment he had been hoping for since the first day of class. Proof that predators could be more than monsters, that intelligence and hunting ability could coexist. "You understand," Marcus said, more statement than question. The hunter nodded, the same gesture it had used before. Then it spoke again, this time in its own language. The sounds were complex, layered with harmonics and undertones that human ears could barely perceive. But the rhythm was unmistakably linguistic. Marcus pulled out his tablet and began recording. "I wish I could understand you," he said. "But I'm trying to learn." The hunter watched him work, then moved closer. Marcus tensed slightly but didn't retreat. The creature reached out with one massive hand and gently touched the tablet, careful not to damage it with its claws. For several minutes they stood together in the abandoned observation room. The hunter examined Marcus's recording equipment, while Marcus took detailed notes on its vocalizations and body language. It was a meeting between equals, predator and predator, intelligence and intelligence. The moment was broken by the sound of heavy footsteps in the corridor outside. Security forces were approaching, armed with weapons designed to stop creatures much less dangerous than a Thaknari hunter. The hunter heard them coming and looked toward the door. Its posture shifted slightly, and for the first time Marcus saw hints of the killing machine that had terrified his classmates. The creature's muscles tensed, its claws extended slightly, and its head lowered in a predatory stance. "No," Marcus said firmly. "They're scared. If you hurt them, it will confirm everything they believe about predators." The hunter looked back at him, conflict clear in its alien features. It had been imprisoned, studied like a specimen, and now armed guards were coming to drag it back to its cage. Every instinct must be telling it to fight. Marcus stepped between the hunter and the door. "Trust me," he said. "Please." The words seemed to reach something in the creature's mind. Its posture relaxed slightly, though it remained ready to move if necessary. The security team burst through the door, weapons raised and targeting systems active. They stopped short when they saw Marcus standing calmly beside the escaped predator. "Student Chen," the team leader called. "Step away from the subject immediately." "Its name is Kethvar," Marcus said, using the closest approximation he could manage of the sounds the hunter had made. "And it's not going to hurt anyone. That creature is an apex predator," the team leader replied. "It has killed dozens of sentients across 3 star systems." Marcus looked back at the hunter, at Kethvar. "You weren't always a killer, were you? Something changed." The hunter made a sound that was unmistakably mournful. It gestured to itself, then spread its arms wide in a motion that seemed to encompass everything around them. Then it made the sound again, longer and more complex. Even without understanding the language, Marcus could hear the grief in those alien tones. This wasn't a mindless killing machine. This was a person who had lost everything and everyone they had ever known. "Your world," Marcus said softly. "The stellar catastrophe. You lost your home, your people, your entire species. You've been alone for 300 years. Kethvar nodded, and the sound it made now was definitely grief, the kind of deep, soul-crushing loss that could drive anyone to desperate acts. "The killings," Marcus continued, the pieces falling into place. "You weren't hunting for food. You were hunting for something else. Contact, understanding. Someone who could see you as more than a monster." The security team was growing restless. "Student Chen, you need to move away from the subject now. We have authorization to use lethal force." Marcus turned to face them, his own protective instincts flaring. "This being is sapient. It's intelligent, self-aware, and capable of communication. If you kill it, you'll be committing murder." "It's a predator," the team leader replied. "It doesn't matter if it's smart. It's still dangerous, so am I," Marcus said quietly. "So are you, for that matter. Intelligence doesn't make something less dangerous. It just makes it capable of choosing not to be." Behind him, Kethvar was listening to every word. The hunter understood more human speech than it could speak, and it was learning that Marcus was defending it against his own species. Slowly, deliberately, Kethvar moved past Marcus toward the security team. The guards raised their weapons, but the hunter ignored them. Instead, it walked to the containment cell door and stepped inside. The message was clear. It was returning to captivity voluntarily, not because it was forced to, but because it chose to trust Marcus's promise that things could be different. The security team hesitated, confused by this unexpected development. They had come prepared for a fight with an escaped monster, not a dignified surrender by an apparently reasoning being. Marcus looked at Kethvar through the failing barrier, then at Dr. Vexhai, who had returned with backup power units to restore the containment field. "We can't keep doing this," he said. "We can't keep treating sapient beings like laboratory specimens. This has to change." The emergency session of the Academy Board convened 3 hours after the containment failure. Representatives from 12 peaceful species sat around a crystal table, their forms flickering with agitation and concern. Dr. Vexhai stood before them, her crystalline structure dim with uncertainty. "Explain to us again," Chancellor Brightwing Against Stars said, her avian features ruffled with distress, "how a Class X predator escaped containment and chose to return voluntarily." Dr. Vexhai activated a holographic display showing security footage from the incident. The board members watched in silence as Marcus conversed with the hunter, as the creature demonstrated intelligence and emotional depth, and as it made the conscious choice to return to its cell. "Student Chen believes the subject is sapient," Dr. Vexhai reported. "His observations over the past month suggest intelligence levels equivalent to any member species of this academy. Impossible," declared Representative Stone that sings in rain from the Geological Collective. "Predators cannot achieve true sapience. Violence and intelligence are incompatible." "With respect," a new voice said from the back of the chamber, "that assumption appears to be incorrect." All eyes turned to Marcus as he entered the board chamber. He had been summoned to give testimony, though several board members visibly recoiled at his presence. To them, having one predator defend another was deeply unsettling. "Student Chen," Chancellor Brightwing said carefully, "you claim this creature is intelligent. What evidence do you offer?" Marcus activated his tablet, displaying weeks of recorded observations. Tool use, problem-solving, self-recognition, language acquisition, delayed gratification, tactical planning, and emotional complexity. Kethvar meets every criterion for sapient intelligence. Kethvar? Another board member inquired. Its name, Marcus replied, or as close as I can pronounce with human vocal cords. It told me its name during our conversation. The chamber erupted in alarmed discussions. The idea that the hunter had a name, a personal identity, challenged their fundamental understanding of predatory species. Chancellor Brightwing called for order. Even if this creature is intelligent, it remains dangerous. The security reports show it could have killed you easily during the containment failure. How do we know it won't do so in the future? Marcus considered his answer carefully. Because it had that chance and chose not to take it. Kethvar isn't a mindless killer. It's a person who has been alone for 3 centuries, driven to desperate acts by isolation and grief. He changed the display to show comparative footage from Earth. My homeworld has many apex predators. Some are solitary, some are social, but all of them have complex emotional lives. They form bonds, they grieve losses, they play and learn and dream. Intelligence doesn't make them less predatory. It makes them better at choosing when and how to use their abilities. Representative deep current wisdom in aquatic species rippled with concern. Are you suggesting that all predatory species might be sapient? I'm suggesting we've been studying them wrong, Marcus replied. We focused on their capacity for violence instead of their capacity for thought. We've treated them as specimens instead of individuals, and in doing so, we've missed the most important aspect of their nature. Dr. Vexhai stepped forward. Student Chen's observations have been remarkably detailed and consistent. His methodology, while unconventional, has yielded more behavioral data than previous studies spanning decades. Because I'm not afraid of them, Marcus added. Fear blinds us to understanding. My classmates see Kethvar as a monster, because they can't imagine intelligence without pacifism. But intelligence and predation evolve together on many worlds. They're not mutually exclusive. Chancellor Brightwing leaned forward. What are you proposing, Student Chen? Marcus took a deep breath. I propose we stop studying predators as specimens and start working with them as colleagues. Kethvar has knowledge about hundreds of star systems, experience with dozens of species, and insights into predatory behavior that we could never gain through observation alone. You want to release it? Representative Stone That Sings asked in horror. I want to treat it with the dignity it deserves as a sapient being, Marcus corrected. That doesn't mean releasing it into the general population. It means acknowledging that it's a person with rights, needs, and the capacity for meaningful contribution to our understanding of the galaxy. The board members conferred among themselves in a dozen different languages. Marcus waited, knowing that his words were challenging everything they believed about the nature of intelligence and civilization. Finally, Chancellor Brightwing spoke. This proposal is unprecedented. However, your evidence is compelling. We will authorize a trial program under strict supervision. Marcus felt relief flood through him. Thank you. You won't regret this decision. The conditions will be extensive, the Chancellor continued. The subject will remain in containment, but its living conditions will be improved. You will serve as primary liaison, responsible for its behavior and well-being. Any sign of aggressive intent will result in immediate termination of the program. Understood. Marcus nodded. Over the following weeks, Kethvar's containment chamber was transformed. The sterile white walls were replaced with surfaces that could display images of various worlds. Puzzle feeders replaced simple food dispensers. Most importantly, communication equipment was installed to allow for extended conversations. Marcus spent hours each day working with Kethvar, learning the hunter's language and teaching it more human speech. The breakthrough came when Kethvar began sharing memories of its homeworld, transmitted through a combination of vocalizations and holographic projections. The other students gradually overcame their fear enough to participate in these sessions. They watched in amazement as Kethvar described the complex social structures of hunter society, their reverence for the art of the hunt, and their deep respect for the balance between predator and prey. We were never mindless killers, Kethvar explained during one session, its voice now clear enough for the translation systems to process. We were gardeners of our ecosystem, maintaining balance through careful selection. The hunt was sacred, never wasteful, never cruel. Piptel, who had been the most frightened of all the students, raised a tentative paw. But you killed sentient beings after your world was destroyed. How do you explain that? Kethavar's response was filled with such profound sadness that even the peaceful species could feel its weight. I was looking for someone who could understand what I had lost. In my madness, I thought if I could make others feel the fear I felt, perhaps they would comprehend the depth of my grief. I was wrong. Fear creates only more fear. Dr. Vexhai found herself completely revising her understanding of predatory behavior. Your species had philosophy, art, complex social structures? We had everything yours do, Kethavar replied. We simply expressed it differently. Our poetry was written in the movement of the hunt. Our art was the perfect balance between life and death. Our philosophy centered on the responsibility that comes with power. Marcus nodded. This is what I've been trying to explain. Predators aren't the opposite of civilization. They're just a different expression of it. 6 months later, the Academy established the Department of Interspecies Predator Relations with Marcus as its first director. The program expanded to include other predatory species. Each studied not as specimens but as individuals with their own cultures and perspectives. Kethavar became the department's first research partner, helping to design protocols for communicating with newly discovered predatory species. Its insights proved invaluable in preventing conflicts between peaceful and predatory civilizations. The transformation wasn't just academic. Word spread throughout the galaxy about the Academy's breakthrough in predator relations. Isolated hunters like Kethavar began approaching Galactic Council worlds, seeking communication rather than confrontation. During the program's first anniversary celebration, Marcus stood before a mixed audience of peaceful and predatory species. In the front row, Kethavar sat alongside former classmates who no longer flinched at its presence. We learned something important this year, Marcus said. Intelligence takes many forms. Some species achieve wisdom through meditation and harmony. Others find it through competition and challenge. Neither path is superior. Both have value. He gestured to Kethavar. My friend here taught us that predators aren't monsters. They're simply beings who evolved different strategies for survival. And like all intelligent beings, they have the capacity for choice, for growth, for friendship. Kethavar stood and spoke in its now fluent human speech. Marcus taught me that not all prey are helpless and not all predators are alone. He showed me that strength can be used to protect rather than destroy, and that understanding is the greatest hunt of all. The two beings, human and hunter, predator and predator, stood together as the audience applauded. Around them, the galaxy was slowly learning that intelligence came in many forms, and that even the most fearsome predators could become the most valuable allies. Dr. Vexhai watched from the back of the auditorium, her crystalline form bright with satisfaction. She had begun the semester hoping to study predatory behavior. Instead, she had learned something far more valuable, that understanding begins not with fear but with respect.